We're Carl and Virginia Herrington. Been a part of New Frontier since 1992. I remember the first time John Privet sat down with me at a men's conference and said he felt like God had spoken to him about planting a church. I found it very difficult. You really don't want your closest friends who you feel like will contribute to what you're doing, where you are, to leave you. You can try to encourage people to stay with you, but if you're on a mission, you have to release them to go.
3 of our closest, family friends were leaving all at the same time. And I'm going to keep this really real. I got very angry. But God and His goodness, and He really spoke to me one day, and He said, Virginia, the goal of this life is not relationships. The goal is my kingdom purposes. And relationships and friendships are a blessing along this journey. I still grieved. It was a grieving involved and a sadness involved, but yet an excitement that was involved as well.
Our job as parents is to release our kids to leave home. And we can actually subconsciously teach them to depend on us in an unhealthy way that keeps them. I think the same thing applies to leaders being sent out.
What God said is to keep our children as well as our spiritual children in an open hand. The end thereof is so worth it. I was a woman who, when church planting was talked about years ago, I just cringed because I did not want a church plant. I think God calls us, I know God calls us out of our comfort zone. And I think sometimes leaders are held back because planting a church is not comfortable. There is pain, there is sacrifice, there is suffering, but it's worth it because of God's eternal purposes.
It's not about what we're going to receive, it's about, has God called us? It's not about things being comfortable and us being taken care of. It is about going.
It's not an easy answer to say, okay, yes, I'm going to, move it in our 60s and follow God's voice. It was like a call to the church there to rise up. I would live in the past and the good of the past, and it kept me from really planting myself today. I was finding myself living in Atlanta still, and so I had to really release what God had done, and those were an amazing season in Atlanta, but to really embrace what God's doing today. Or we can set our eyes on Jesus, and we're on this race of faith. One day, we're going to meet Him face to face, and I think living life with an eternal perspective enables us to go through the pain, to go through the suffering as we look to Jesus.
We are called to plant churches, and hopefully from this conference, churches will be planted.